everyone! Today I will be demonstrating how to palpate three important anatomical landmarks on the lower limb: the greater trochanter of the femur, the patella and tibial tuberosity, and the lateral malleolus. Now let's get started! First, let's locate the greater trochanter of the femur. This bony prominence is the most lateral point of the proximal femur and is located about 6 to 8 inches below the iliac crest. It can be a bit easier to find in women due to the wider pelvis, but it can be covered by muscle in men. To find it, start by placing your hands on top of your hip, where the iliac crest is located. Gently press down along the side of your hip and move your fingers about 6 to 8 inches below the iliac crest. You should feel a bony prominence here. This is your greater trochanter. You can move your fingers around it to help to feel the shape and ensure you're on the right spot. The greater trochanter will feel like a solid, smooth, bony protrusion. Remember, it's located laterally to your body, so it's on the outer side of the hips. Next, let's palpate the patella or the kneecap. The patella is located at the front of the knee joint and will also palpate the tibial tuberosity, which is located just below the kneecap. To find the patella, simply feel the front of your knee, where you'll feel the round, hard surface of the kneecap. Gently move your fingers around the edges of the patella to get a sense of its boundaries. Next, follow the ligament just below the kneecap, which is the patellar ligament. Move your fingers downward and feel the bony prominence just below the patella, and that's the tibial tuberosity. It should feel like a solid bump on the front of your shin just below the knee. Finally, let's locate the lateral malleolus. The lateral malleolus is the bony prominence on the outside of your ankle, which is formed by the distal end of the fibula. To find it, place your fingers on the outer side of your ankle, where you'll feel a prominent bony structure sticking out. This is the lateral malleolus. It's located just below the joint and on the outside of the ankle. So move your fingers to the outer part of your ankle to locate it.
So, let's locate and palpate these bone markings on ourselves. The medial malleolus. First, sit down or stand in a comfortable position where you can reach your ankle. The second one is, locate the inner side of your ankle, the closest midline of your body. Third, feel the prominent bony structure at the lower end of your tibia, which we call shin bone. This is the medial malleolus, which forms part of the ankle joint. And lastly, gently palpate or press lightly around this area to feel its shapes and edges. First, position your foot so you can easily reach your heel. Second, with your fingers, touch the back and underside of your foot, where the heel is located. This is the calcaneus, the largest tarsal bone in your foot. Third, trace the bone extend while palpating from the back of your heel upward toward the Achilles tendon and forward along the sole of your foot.
Now, let's talk about the basic but super important body movements. First, flexion. This is when you decrease the angle between two body parts. Think of bending your elbow to bring your hand closer to your shoulder. You're flexing the arm at the elbow. Next, extension. It's the opposite of flexion. You're straightening a body part and increasing the angle. For example, when you straighten your elbow, you're extending your arm. Flex, extend. Finally, we have adduction. This means moving a body part away from the midline of your body. When you lift your arm or leg to the side, like this, you're abducting it. Think of it as taking it away.
Today, I'll be demonstrating three types of joint movements: adduction, rotation, and circumduction. These movements are essential for understanding how our limbs and joints move in different directions. Let's get started. First, adduction. Let's begin with adduction. Adduction is the movement of the limb toward the midline of the body. To demonstrate this, I'll start with my arm out to the side like this. Now, I'm going to move my arm towards my body. This is the adduction, bringing the limb closer to the midline. Notice how my arms moves inward, bringing it back to my side. Adduction is the opposite of abduction, which is when the arm moves away from the body. Next, let's move on to rotation. Rotation is the movement of a bone around its longitudinal axis. I'll demonstrate this with my neck and my arm. So, I'm going to rotate my head from left to right. This is an example of rotation at the cervical spine, where the atlas rotates around the odontoid process of the axis. It's like turning your head to look over your shoulder. Lastly, we have circumduction. Circumduction is a circular or conical movement that involves flexion, extension, abduction, and adduction all together. This is typically seen in ball and socket joints like the shoulder or hip. So, I'm going to demonstrate circumduction at my shoulder. Watch as I move my arm in a circular motion. I'm keeping the proximal end of my arm stable while the distal end moves in a circle. Notice how my arm moves in a circular pattern involving both abduction and adduction as my arm swings away from the body and then back toward it. This is circumduction.
Pronation is when the palm of your hand moves from facing upward to facing downward. This movement makes the radius bone to cross over the ulna bone, forming an X shape. And an example of this is like turning a doorknob. To visualize this, imagine a line in the middle of the body. Then, focus at my thumb. You could see the thumb is away from the midline. When you rotate it, the thumb now is towards our body, or in the midline of our body. That is pronation. While supination is the opposite of pronation. It involves moving the palm from facing downward to facing upward, making the radius and ulna bones parallel. This is useful for holding a bowl or carrying something. While supination, looking also at my thumb, you could see the thumb rotate away from the midline. Remember that, the thumb rotates away from the midline. Next is inversion. Inversion means turning the sole of your foot inward. This action helps to stabilize your foot and it maintains balance while walking or running. To visualize this, you could also focus on the big toe of the foot. Your sole should start facing inward, towards the body's midline. That is